Hello everyone, this is Geeky Abhishek, and today I'm going to review the Huawei Ascend XT. I was about to give a very positive review of this phone until I dropped it today morning, and as you can see, there's pretty much a big damage on the bezel, and then the camera lens screen also shattered. It was not a huge drop, it was just from my hand to a concrete floor. Um, even and But it's dinged up pretty bad right now. So um, this phone actually falls under the category of a phablet as it comes with a 6-inch screen. It's only 720p, but the screen looks really nice and bright, and the sunlight visibility is also pretty good. The build quality feels solid in hand. It's a little bit heavy compared to any other device of this size. As you can see, it has a very minimalistic look, premium look, and a textured back, um, which I felt was very pretty good. But once I dropped it, by looking at the damages, I can say this has been the past experience with all of my Huawei devices, that the build quality of the materials is not really good. They look good, but if you drop them, it gets scratched very easily. So same thing happened with the Huawei Android watch. Even though it's a sapphire crystal and a stainless steel body, the stainless steel body was got scratched very easily compared to my LG Urban or Samsung Galaxy Gear S2 watches. So coming back to the review of this device, so this is how it looks. It looks pretty good. So I would suggest, but since the materials are delicate, I would suggest to pick up a case. Uh, Other than that, let me show you some of the things in here on the phone. So this runs Android 6.0, comes with 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal memory, and there's a micro SD card slot. Says you can put up to a 32 gig memory card, but I have tested it with a 128 gigs card and it worked without any issues. So I had to format the card inside the phone to make it work, but after that it worked pretty well. This phone, however, runs its Huawei's own version of Android. It's like a skin, like Samsung TouchWiz. It looks kind similar to an iPhone screen. It's not too bad, but I would say I did notice some lags while using the screen. I prefer clean vanilla stock Android experience over any skin. So this is the emotion UI that is present in most of the Huawei phones. It's running 4.1, and as you can see, the Android version is 6.0.1. And then again comes with 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal memory. Okay, so this is how the interface is. It does have an app drawer. It's not like the newer some of the other skins that Blue has or LG has. So you do have a app drawer where you can search for the apps, um, and when you pull down, so you see settings and then you see notifications. So there are two tabs, and the way they did the notification, I kind of like it, because there is a timeline and it shows each of these notifications against the timeline. So when you pull down, by default it will pull down the settings menu, and if you have a notification on, it will pull down the notification. So it's kind of nice, and then you have all these things in the shortcuts, but and then you come to the settings. If you go to the settings, if you see, most of the things are same as stock vanilla Android, but this is a little simplistic. If you go and look at another stock Android phone, there will be a lot of settings, and you have to scroll through those settings to find what you need. But this seems pretty simplistic, so probably it's a little easy for non-advanced users to find things what they want to do with the phone. Now coming to the camera quality, I wouldn't say it's an 8 megapixel back shooter and a 2 megapixel front shooter. These are some of the images that I took of the flowers in the macro mode. They are decent in broad daylight. Low light camera is not, it's okay. It's probably serviceable if you are indoors, but don't expect to take a shot if you were inside a club or a bar. It won't. The images would be very blurry and grainy. The other thing that is I want to talk about the phone is the way it handles the backlight. It's kind of not so good. So if you have a lot of areas where there is a high illumination in the background, uh, whatever processing logic that the camera uses to process that high like high contrast background, it is not able to. So this picture, I'll post the pictures taken by this phone and a different phone, the ZTE Z Max 2, and you would be able to see that the Z Max 2 did a much better job in handling the backlight versus this phone. So the camera is pretty not bad in broad daylight. It is very good. So for your Instagram and Facebook, this would be pretty good. It's not a Galaxy S7 or an iPhone 7 quality, but it is definitely very sharp. You can see, I don't know if you can see in the videos. So even at that zoom level in broad daylight, it's very detailed. It takes decent images, and it would be okay for most people. And look, there's one more image. As you can see, what I was talking about, the sky here, it's all white. You cannot see the blue sky or the clouds in them. So when it comes to the way the camera processes the images, it struggles to deal with dynamic contrast and high backlight. But other than that, it's very decent, vivid, and sharp, and it's pretty good for a 8 megapixel shooter. So these are some of the images. I will also post these images on a link below so that you can compare. So that's about the camera. Now I'm going to talk about the battery life. It comes with a 3000 milliamp battery. Battery life is decent. It's not as good as the ZTE Z Max 2. The only reason I'm always keep referring to that phone is both of these phones are from AT&T, quite about the same size and similar specs and similar pricing. So if you were looking for a phone in the same price range, these are the two options you would probably be looking at. So that's why between the two, I wanted to give you a feel of how each one of them is. So this is the dialer. This is how the messaging looks. There's a keyboard. So this is how the keyboard looks. They do support a handwriting thing, so swiping, that's by default. And then they have the Mozilla Firefox as the default browser. There was a lot of bloatware from AT&T, so I was able to disable most of it. So now there's not much bloatware. But this is how generally the speed of the phone is. It's not blazing fast, and perhaps this is mostly due to the ways emotion UI implementation. I sometimes felt like the ZTE Z Max with its more stocky Android was faster. So this is how it handles the memory management. When you hit that, it kills all the apps in the background and tells you how much of it freed it. And if you tap and hold, so all these, they don't have any keys in the front. This is pretty thick bezel, so you would expect that there would have been some hardware keys on there, but there's no hardware keys. Everything is a soft key, which I don't mind because of the 6-inch screen. It's fairly a big phone to hold in the hand, and it's kind of hard to reach the corners of the screen. So if there were hardware buttons, I think they would have made it more difficult for you to reach for the other thing is the screen looks pretty good. There's no complaints about the screen. The camera is decent for daylight, not so good for low light or indoor. And the camera also has a lot of other good things, like if you they have different kinds of things that you can play with. They have different kinds of effects, and then you have light painting, then you have beauty mode, time photo beauty mode, and there were a few other funny things that you could do, which I can't find now. So camera is a fun thing to play around with. There are a few things that you might like, but again, the quality of the shooter other than bright daylight is not that great. So yeah. um, okay, so now this phone doesn't have an FM radio, does not have an does have an FM radio with the ZT Max didn't had. And the other thing I wanted to show you guys is the sound quality. So there's only one bottom firing speaker, but in terms of the speaker, so this the sound quality is not the loudest when it comes out because it has only a single backfiring speaker, but it's decent enough. The quality is good. There's no distortion. It's full. You hear the highs and the lows. Everything is pretty good in terms of sound, except the volume, which is not as bad as the Nexus 5X out of the box, where you have to really tweak to use a speakerphone and all that. But here, this phone is not as loud as any of the Samsung speakerphones, but this is still okay. The sound quality is pretty good, and this is how the interface is. Most of the interface kind of lends it theme from iPhone. That's what everybody says, that Huawei kind of tries to. Their Emotion UI is kind of geared towards making it look more like an iPhone. I wouldn't completely agree with it, but it's definitely different than vanilla stock Android. It's colorful and vibrant. So I mean, I have no issues using this if uh, if I wasn't a fan of stock Android. So I don't like any of the launches from any device manufacturer. I just like the plain Google stock Android experience. So that's about it. I mean, I don't want to bore you guys with all the things, but that's how you see the notifications that I was talking about. So it comes into it shows the time which, and then you can swipe or reply. In terms of call quality, network speed, everything seemed to be pretty fine, pretty normal. I used it on AT&T network, and I never had any issues with the signal quality or voice quality or anything. Uh, Even the speakerphone works. Battery life is decent, not bad, not as good as the ZTE Max 2, even though they have the same size battery. Um, but only negative that I can see is this phone is a bit on the wider side, so if you have small hands it might be difficult to handle. But definitely for kids and all, if you are trying to buy a cheaper phablet version of a phone where they can play games or watch movies or cartoons, this is definitely a good buy. Because the ZTE Z Max 2 has a smaller screen. It's only 5.5-inch screen, both 720p, but maybe due to that size of the screen, the ZTE battery life is a little better than the Huawei one. The only complaint so far is while the finish and and the build uh, looks premium, it is not sturdy at all. One drop from probably 4 feet high, and you see there's a big scuff on the bezel, and my camera lens is already shattered. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's a SIM card tray and a memory card, and also where you put the memory card too. The back cover is non-removable, so the battery is non-removable. In terms of the feel of the buttons, they are clicky and feel good. Both the buttons are on the right hand side of the phone, and it's easy to differentiate between the power button and the volume rocker. There's a good amount of gap in between the two. But other than that, this phone launched for $149 on Black Friday. There was limited stocks to get it for $50. The ZT Max 2 has also been launched for about the same price, and then occasionally has gone down as a special clearance or some other special buys for $50. So given the choice that you could get this phone for about $50 to $100, I would actually prefer the ZT over the Huawei. But if you want a bigger screen and you're careful with the phone, then you might want this. One reason is that the fast software, the more stocky version of the ZTE, feels faster. So let me pull that phone out and let me show you how the ZTE compares. So this is how the ZTE looks. Uh, if you see, most of it, ZTE also has a screen, but rest of the rest of the thing is pretty much like stock Android. So when I'm navigating the menus, you see this is a little faster compared to the one from the Huawei one.